Every time a needle pierces skin, a studio assumes strict clinical liability. Many shops invest heavily in a high-end autoclave, assuming that single piece of equipment guarantees a past health inspection. Regulators know it doesn't. When inspectors walk through the door, they audit 3 specific variables. They look for a strict 2-step physical cleaning sequence. They check that every tool is matched to a specific regulatory classification, and they audit the studio's compliance logs. These protocols form the structural foundation of studio safety, dictating whether every later sterilization step actually succeeds. To understand the rules, we look at the microscopic level. A used tool is covered in dried blood, pigment residue, and plasma proteins. Together, these form a hardened layer called a biofilm. This organic debris acts as physical armor. It shields underlying microorganisms from chemical action and actively neutralizes the germicidal properties of hospital-grade disinfectants. This is why the World Health Organization and environmental health regulators mandate a physical-mechanical cleaning step. Staff must use soap, water, and friction to physically tear apart that organic shield before any chemicals touch the surface. Applying a surface disinfectant directly to an uncleaned workstation is an automatic protocol failure. The chemical wastes its active ingredients, attempting to dissolve crusted proteins, leaving the actual pathogens entirely untouched. Once an item is clean, the required treatment depends on how it interacts with the human body. Regulators track this using a strict framework called the Spaulding classification. This matrix sorts every studio item into 3 tiers. The top row is the critical tier. Items that enter sterile tissue or the bloodstream, like piercing tapers and tattoo needles, carry extreme risk. They strictly require single-use disposal or full autoclave sterilization. Moving down, the semi-critical tier includes items that touch non-intact skin or mucous membranes, such as calipers and pigment trays. These require high-level disinfection at a minimum. Finally, the non-critical tier covers items contacting only intact skin. Furniture, spray bottles, and clip cords belong here, requiring low or intermediate level disinfection for daily wipe-downs. This graphic highlights the methods inspectors actively target for violations. UV lamps, glass bead sterilizers, pressure cookers, and ultrasonic tanks cannot assure sterile conditions and are not legally approved sterilization methods. Using one of these unapproved methods, or misclassifying a critical tool into a lower disinfection tier, instantly triggers a critical compliance violation. This timer illustrates the most frequent execution failure in any shop. Disinfectants require a specific wet contact time to work, usually measured in minutes. Spraying a surface and immediately wiping it dry stops the chemical process before it finishes. This equation demonstrates the severe hazard of improvised solutions. Mixing chlorine-based disinfectants with ammonia or acids immediately generates toxic gas and turns a standard cleaning cart into an acute respiratory hazard. Rushing application times or guessing at chemical dilutions voids all EPA efficacy claims, leaving behind active biological pathogens and dangerous chemical hazard zones. Regulators operate on a single absolute rule. If an action is not formally documented, it legally never happened. During an inspection, they perform quiet checks. They read product labels to verify active EPA or DIN registrations, and they verify that secondary spray bottles are accurately dated and labeled. This is a monthly autoclave spore test log. Maintaining this schedule is the only way to legally prove your sterilization equipment actually functions. A written schedule, verified products, and a staff that can explain their tool classifications from memory are the real deliverables. That exactness is what protects clients, and it is the only way a studio passes the audit.